Everybody, welcome to our first one after the holidays to the Scrutiny Social Services meeting on 7th of September. Please know that today's meeting will be recorded. Recording may be broadcasted on the local authority's internet and will be only used for training purposes by the Democratic Service Department. All attendees will be viewed, or the camera will be attended. By attending, you'll be consenting to be filmed and to possibly use for these images, sound recording outlined above. You're okay? Right. Any apologies, Matt?
Yeah, Cian Handley, Chair.
Right. Declaration of interest for anybody? That's A and B. Okay. Before I start the meeting, I got a couple of emails off the Social Services officers. Chris Davis should be joining the scrutiny panel, but an email this morning saying he declined the meeting with a monitor officer and decided not to join. I'd like to welcome to Councillor Tony Rogers. He's a new Social Services portfolio member and a cabinet member. Yep. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you.
Sharon Hanley, she's a new member of the Merthyr Borough Wide Youth Forum. She sent apologies. And on agenda 5, Lyndon will be taking a report on. Lyndon, you're unable to present it.
You got what? Sorry, Councillor Smith?
You're unable to present the report.
Oh, right. No,
you're on annual leave. You're telling pokies as well, aren't you?
I'm telling, yes, I do beg your pardon, Chair. It was due to be Steph Webber and Kristen Matthews, my operational managers, but I've come back and saved the day for them.
Just to see me.
Sorry?
Just to see me.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, John. Okay, then a little bit. So the first one on the agenda is item 3, Social Service Recovery, Transformation and Improvement Plan Update, 5 to 14, and I think it's Lisa, I believe.
It is. It's me today.
Yes, when you're ready, carry on.
Okay, so just a quick summary of the report then. So this is the quarterly update on the Social Services Recovery, Transformation and Improvement Plan. So you will recall that I gave an update 3 months ago, so not much has changed since then, but it's just to give you sort of some update. The improvement plan, as you know, was devised prior to the pandemic in March 2020. So there were a number of areas that were delayed because of COVID, but the majority of the plans that we had in place are now up and running again as part of the recovery plan. So section 5 outlines where we were. Section 6 looks at where we are now, which is very much focusing on recovery from COVID, and obviously that includes the parts of the improvement plan. We're looking at how we will deal with extra demand in social care, because obviously that's one of the concerns from COVID, that we will see increased demand at the front door for adults and children. And obviously working with partners will be key to a lot of our work moving forward. So there's updates on the partnership work. Hardship funding continues. So Q1 hardship funding continued for the same as last year, but will start to taper off from September. But as numbers are starting to go back up with COVID, there may be some change in that, because obviously care homes are still claiming the hardship fund where it's appropriate, where they have voids and they can't take new placements. There's new guidance in place from Welsh Government with regards to staff having to isolate. So obviously that's impacting on staff absence, so in a positive way. And testing of staff still remains a priority across care homes and within the teams. 6.6 outlines the updates on each area of the plan, so there's more detail there, and just highlighting that 4 projects have been completed. And then 7 outlines where we want to be, so that's, and then focusing on partnership working as part of the improvement plan, staff support and well-being, which obviously is really important because they're our biggest asset, the staff we work with. The capacity exercise, some of those posts have now been filled, but we're still working on job descriptions for the quality assurance post, and prevention work is obviously going to be key moving forward. with regards to adult and children's services, because we need to sort of try and prevent sort of escalation into statutory service. But happy to answer any questions on the report.
Please, thank you much, appreciate it. I'll go for questions first, members. Ian, you got a question?
Not on this section, Bill, thank you.
All right. Anybody questions on anything? No. He's a read the report, and what they've done, I think you and the staff have done brilliant. You know, to organise everything for the last 18 months. And I think you've done a fabulous job. But what will we do different now? Because we all got a funny feeling we might be a lockdown in October, December time, because everything's rising. What will you do different to change it or to improve it?
I think
it's a nice question, but you know.
We learned a lot, I think, from the first lockdown. So even by the second lockdown, things were different. The safeguarding obviously remains a priority throughout, so that will continue. But I think because staff have now been vaccinated, and you know the risk to those now is much less. If they do get COVID, then they are not as ill as they were. They're not being hospitalised, so that is working. It's about trying to maintain services. So I think we'll probably continue to maintain services as long as we can. There are still some services that are not back to normal. So day services are still sticking to the guidance with social distancing. So that means the numbers are down 50%. But then we're looking at different supports we can offer to those people. So direct payments, for example, has gone, increased because people are having support from their own families in different ways rather than us providing support. So I think it's about looking at offering support in a different way, and we'll obviously continue to do that moving forward. Prevention, again, as soon as things come on our radar, certainly from a school perspective, then we're pushing the early help curve. We're making sure that people are accessing that support, even if it's online. And I think because online has moved forward now a lot with assistive technology, we're able to offer different services now, compared to 18 months ago. So we have moved on a lot, and I think we've learned a lot over the last 18 months. That's not to say we can't, rest on our laurels. We've got to make sure that, we continue to offer support and learn from things. So.
Please, thank you very much. Appreciate online and telephone numbers. Can we advertise our phone numbers better than we've been doing in the past? A lot of people have been asking what numbers to phone. I know you phone the town hall and you go on the menu and you phone whatever number you want. But people say they can wait in a long time. Can we phone direct sometimes to the offices, or we've got to go through the main switchboard?
The numbers are, I know when we were over the last 18 months, so we've been posting regularly, certainly the safeguarding numbers, so that they go straight through to the key offices. So we'll just make sure that comms send out regular tweets and put them on Facebook as well, so that people are seeing those, and that the website is updated so people are aware of it. But where appropriate, staff have been sharing mobile numbers, their direct lines, where they need to. Yeah,
I have no problem, but we got to get the public involved, because we don't go down what happened the last time. No, everybody's screaming, no information, can't get in touch, can't do this. So, if everything can be improved, over the moon. Please appreciate it. Everybody happy with the report?
Bill, just one quick one, if that's okay.
Carry on.
Thank you, Chair. Lisa, it's just in regards to 8.3 and what you need to do next, and where you say we need to ensure the staff receive report. Obviously, it's been a really busy time for yourselves, and your staff have been under immense pressure, to be honest. And I'm just wondering, it says Human Resources and Care First have offered support around counselling for staff. Two things: have many staff taken this up, and is that the support you mean when you say that staff need to be looked after?
I think, it's more than that. At the moment there's a recruitment campaign through Social Care Wales to look at getting more staff into the sector. So obviously that's a support in itself. So if we have more staff, then people are able to take breaks and take their leave and time off that they need to. And they're not working all sorts of hours, because that obviously initially in the pandemic, as people were isolating, people were working above and beyond the hours that they should have been, and they were cancelling leave because they were covering shifts. And staff are exhausted, so it's about making sure that we're recruiting to make sure that staff that we've got, we're giving them breaks and that they want to stay with us. But equally, those staff who want to access counselling and support, because it's been a really traumatic time for them, especially for those staff who've been in care homes, because there's been a lot of loss. And staff, they are only humans. Some of those have needed counselling to deal with some of the loss they've had. So particularly one of the care homes, we've offered quite intensive counselling or above sort of care first, so that staff can talk to a counsellor and talk about their experiences, because there has been a lot of loss, and that's including the providers that we work with as well, so that those supports have been offered. Myself as director, I've done regular comms to all our staff and asked them what support they want. And if there's anything we can do, and people have taken up that opportunity and sort of sent me emails and asked various questions, and it's just about being visible so that people can ask those questions and we can feed back. But it's never ending. We obviously need to continue to offer support, and part of that is making sure people get vaccinated and putting their names forward for the booster campaign, making sure they're first on the list for that. And making sure that we've got, the testing regime in place so people feel safe and they've got appropriate PPE. And at the moment, there are no issues with PPE, so staff feel quite supported, with the services and support they've got.
Lisa, just quickly then as well, you said probably staff have missed their holidays and haven't been able to take them and that sort of time. Have you had support from, say the chief executive for staff to be able to put forward their holidays to the next financial year?
So in certain parts of the sector, so particularly in the care home sector, where some staff would have potentially more than 10 days carried over, then we put a business case forward, which has been supported by the corporate management team. Where they could, staff did take their leave, but there were a number of staff who had 10 or more days. And when I say that, they probably had about 15 days carrying over. So we supported that, and they tried to take those then within this financial year. So people have taken blocks of leave into this year. But I think Welsh Government guidance was that you could carry over 10 days leave now rather than 5 days previously. So that was the support that's been offered longer term.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Chair.
Right then. These human resources, have they played a big part now in supporting you on this to help the staff? Because I know the staff feels got to go my own family. They worked on a Cora Road, and the two girls are still not very well. Now they've got major problems going back into the ward and everything else. So come to have got a good policy with the staff. Have we got the same type of support from human resources helping you?
Yeah, we've had a lot of support over the last 18 months. Some people have really stepped up. I mean, we've had key people who sort of, been named people to link in with social services. We now have regular attendance, with HR attending our senior management team meeting on a fortnightly basis or weekly basis. So that's really supported over the last couple of months. There's obviously been officers that have been linked into the vaccine programme and the testing programme. So, they know the staff to go to now when we need to. They've also been very supportive over the last 18 months, because obviously we changed our agency supplier within the last couple of months. And initially there were some teething problems with that, and we weren't able to access agency staff, and HR have been supporting us through that changes. So yeah, I think HR have been very supportive.
Good. And the last one now for me, Lisa, is you mentioned the booster job, where everybody should be coming in October, something like that. Are all those staff being jobbed? Are they all going for the booster job? Because if they're not jobbed, there's a liability that they can pass it on, and it's a knock-on effect. All the work will be done. We just feeling it when we.
Yeah. So when the original list went out, so all of social care staff were put on the list. We obviously can't enforce them having the jab, but I have to say the majority have taken it up. I think it's probably, I could count on my 2 hands who's turned it down for personal reasons. Some was because of maternity, that they were pregnant, and they didn't want to have the jab when they were pregnant, but they've taken it up subsequently. The babies have been born, so they obviously just had their jabs a bit later. There's 1 or 2 that have chosen not to have it for health reasons. Other than that, and we can't make them do that. The boosters now will be, we are supplying the list now this week of the 1 to 4 categories. So that was the original list. So the over 70s, the social care staff and frontline workers. So those lists of names will be provided. And we've been told by Contact Morgannwg that the booster will probably run from something like the 27th of September. So first of all, there'll be health staff will be vaccinated because obviously they're impacted more in the hospital. And then we'll be the second on the list. So we would think by December, then social care staff should have had the booster.
Great, thank you very much. Any more comments? No, everybody's happy, Elise. Thank you very much. So that's number 3 then. Number 4, on report social services. Elise, back to you.
Okay, back to me. Very briefly then, so this report is to present the full draft director's annual report. As you know, I have to do an annual report every year, which we consult on with the public and with yourselves. So we did consultation with Scrutiny about, I think it was the last Scrutiny meeting actually, which was really positive, and we had lots of feedback, which hopefully we've managed to take on board, and you will see some of the changes in the plan. There are 6 areas that we need to cover in the report, which includes co-production, partnership working, safeguarding, encouraging people to learn and develop, supporting people to develop healthy relationships, and to ensure people are achieving better outcomes. The whole report you'll see is attached to Appendix 1, and I appreciate it's quite lengthy, so I'm not sure if people have had the chance to read through it. It is still a draft, so the final version goes into Welsh Government once it's been signed off by Council next month. We've tried to incorporate all the comments, but we're conscious that the real improvement will probably be next year, post-COVID, and hopefully we can take all that on board. But we've put the figures in as you wanted. And we've tried to make it look different. There aren't photographs to be added because I know that was something you asked for, but unfortunately there was a delay because of consent, so they will be added later on. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Please, thank you very much. I've read the report. I'm happy with it. I'm happy with the way that it starts off with the children's service and goes to the adults. It's totally different as it's been. And I like to mention, you mentioned the Scrutiny Committee in 1 or 2 parts. That's working with him. I never seen that before in my life, so it's good for that. Ian, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Lisa, on page 28, you refer to the Tackling Poverty Board. Could you just very briefly outline to me what this is and what is its remit?
Okay, there's likely to be some changes to this in the next couple of months because we're in the process of sort of revamping it. But the premise of the Tackling Poverty Board was that it would bring all the leads from all the areas of the council together to look at all the various grants that are paid and make sure that we weren't having duplication of service and all the areas that were likely to impact on poverty. So housing, community wellbeing, children's services, adult services, public protection, and sort of employability. So all those people and sort of the chief officer sat on that board, and we could look then to make sure that there was no duplication, that we were using the grants appropriately, and making sure that the public were getting the best service and we were meeting need. So we looked at a sort of our population needs assessment and then looked at where we needed to target any of the resources, but also we wanted sort of that the political input. So the cabinet member was involved in that, the cabinet member for housing, cabinet member for education was also involved. So there were 2 different meetings there. So what we're trying to do now is that we are re-looking at it, because obviously it's due for review, because it was something that we set up maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And there's going to be a poverty summit. I think the date in the calendar is for after half-term week in November with politicians. And then obviously we'll take those, some of the work we've done, some of the reviews and monitoring, and we'll take that forward then from November.
Thank you very much, Lisa. And Chair, with your permission, can I ask one more question?
You carry on, Ian.
Lisa, on page 43, you talk about the Community Occupational Health Service and the fact that there's a very high turnover of staff and that recruitment in this area is difficult. Can you tell me why there should be any difficulties in this particular area? What are the problems there?
My Democratic Services app has just gone down, so I can't see the report. Is it in reference to occupational therapy with regards to HR, or is it occupational therapy with respect to adult services? Sorry, Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, I think it's adult services and their sort of role in discharge of patients from hospitals and things like that.
In the past, there's been discrepancy within MRTHA of the pay scale for occupational therapists. For some reason, when the job was evaluated some years ago, the grade was downgraded from, I think, an 8 to a 7. Now, an 8 would be a qualified social work grade, and obviously 7's below that. So we lost a lot of people at that time. So we've obviously re-looked at that, and hopefully sort of now we're on par with other local authorities. The issue is there's a national shortage. There's difficulty in social work recruitment at the moment, and there's difficulty in occupational therapy at the moment. The problem is health. They employ occupational therapists, which is great, but they pay a lot more than local authorities. So there's a competition about, you know, why would you come and work for local authority when you can get paid more to do the same job just up the road working for the health board? There's also been jobs created through ICF funding and through transformation, which are all sort of seen to be very attractive. And people have moved to different, you know, different posts, different responsibility, but similar monies. So I think it's about sort of, there is a national shortage across the country, not just Wales, but England as well. And I think we need to start targeting, you know, colleges and universities and try and encourage people to go down that route for employment. We're in a better position now because I think we are starting to recruit to posts, and we've just advertised the senior posts, so we're supporting those newly qualified as well. Because I think that's the other thing, we've been able to recruit, but not necessarily experienced occupational therapists, which means when they become experienced, they then go off to, you know, get the money and chase the money. But, you know, it's something we're looking at, and it's obviously something we're trying to address.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you, Chair.
All right, yeah. Thank you, Lisa. On the comments we made, is that the workshop we're going to have with social service, with Scrutiny, social services and education, all members of the council? Because we did ask for a workshop on this issue, didn't we?
I'm not sure who's been invited to that, Councillor Smith. I'd have to find out and come back to you.
Okay, because we did ask for that a long time ago, when it went to the service board, and the service board never reported back to us.
Yeah, I'd double check. I know Councillor Jago's been invited because she's the poverty champion. Right. So whether it's been extended to a whole of Scrutiny, I'd have to check. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any more questions on this report? Everybody's happy? Okay, thank you very much, Liz. I do appreciate it. Very good. Number 5 then, come to ask you, offending services. Where's your mass? Colin, up to you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Let me just get my report up, sorry. Thank you, excuse me coughing in between, I got a glass of water here anyway.
No problem.
Thank you, Chair. So this is to provide an update on the work of the YOS during 2020-21 with brief overview. I won't spend too long on it, and how we coped during the last 17 and 18 months, particularly during the lockdowns. I should say that this report was written back in June, really, although it's still relevant. However, the most significant aspect of the change since then has been the completion of the restructure of the youth offending service, which I'm relieved about, I can tell you, because it just added to the other uncertainties that we were working alongside during COVID and other things that were going on in the youth offending team at that time. And also, I've since written a youth justice plan since this report was written, and so in some respects, this report is quite a short summary of the more detailed information that's set out in that plan. So I've started off 3.0. I've as usual, provided some background information to the Cwmtaf YOS, which is now, I think, in its 6th year following collaboration. I've listed its statutory partners and the complex funding arrangements coming as it does from a number of different sources. The governance is provided by the Offender Management Board, of course, which Lisa is a co-chair of that board, which meets on a quarterly basis. And we also report our performance as a Cwmtaf Youth Offending Service to the Youth Justice Board, to the Welsh Government, and also to the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office on a 6-monthly basis. So we weren't required to put a plan in place last year because of the issues around COVID, but we were nevertheless asked to complete a self-assessment against a new set of national standards and an action plan to go with it, which was no bad thing because it was linked very much to the structure and the governance of the Youth Offending Service, and also linked to the standards by which HMI Inspectorate inspect us. So in some ways it was good. It's a constant in our agenda, but it also reminds partners of their accountability, I suppose, towards youth offending as well. And we've had good buy-in both strategically and operationally from partners across Cwmtaf, Merthyr and RCT in terms of taking that work forward. In terms of where we were, I've outlined where most of us were during that time, really, and some of the difficulties that we had. But I would say, as it points out in 4.2, we were able to continue supporting children and young people who were known to the service, whether they appeared in court or whether they appeared in the police station. We continued to support them face to face, as well as those young people and children who were subject to intensive supervision and surveillance because of the high risk that they posed in the community. So we still did that work through the use of our long-term sessional workers, and often that work took place during the evenings and weekends too. So I'm particularly pleased about that in some respects, because I know that it wasn't going on everywhere across Wales, given what was happening at that time. And there were some questions asked at that time as well of us about breaching COVID and all the rest of it. But I'm glad that we managed the risk as well as we did, and we did it well alongside our partners in the police as well. If they were out there, I think that we needed to be out there too, but we did it safely, I have to say. The other big thing around that time, just to finish, is that I found out that the law courts where we are based in Merthyr were still open, because we were cleaned out of there at one point. But I found that they were still open, and there was a skeleton staff of court staff working within there. So we were able to quickly negotiate, making sure that we could get a skeleton staff into that base ourselves also. And that proved really beneficial in terms of the support that we could offer to staff that most needed it, that we were in good touch with our partners, and that where some families were desperate, we could see some people safely within the building. So that's a sort of a brief overview of what happened last year. In terms of the restructure, I've already mentioned we're out of the woods regarding that now. And now it's going to be all about embedding that new structure in, excuse me, and making sure that staff are familiar with their new roles and the new roles as it's set out in their new job descriptions. In the main, what it's going to mean for the Youth Offending Service is more capacity, more managerial capacity, social work capacity, and senior prac capacity down towards the early intervention and prevention end of our work, which is now accounting for nearly 70% of our business. So more and more young people are coming through at a much earlier stage, which I know most of you will know all this, so excuse me for repeating myself. I've done this before, but more and more complex children coming into the arena before they even get to the police station or before they get to the law courts. But we are picking these young people up at a much earlier stage. When we made the case for change in terms of how we restructure a few years ago, that came about as a result of a review of the youth justice system. That was done nationally, but there was one done in Wales as well. And that led to the implementation of a thing called the Blueprint for Youth Justice in Wales. Running through that Blueprint for Youth Justice, now it's intended to be implemented in the months ahead, is early intervention and prevention, a trauma-informed approach to working with young people, so those young people that have had difficult adverse childhood experiences, and also in a more child-focused manner, a child-focused approach running right through it. And in many respects, I think because we have a bit of an expert within the team, a senior practitioner who's seconded to the Youth Justice Board one day a week, is actually undertaking this work and helping other youth offending services across Wales to embed trauma-informed practice as well. So in some respects, I'm pleased that we're a little ahead of the game in terms of that line of work. 5.3, I've outlined some of the work that's paid for from Welsh Government in terms of currently early intervention and prevention. I'm not going to list all of that through that paragraph. I would say that the challenge for us going forward is going to be about how we actually interface with our partners across the region in RCT and Merthyr regarding early intervention and prevention work. So we're being asked to work in a much more targeted way with young people and children who are on the periphery of offending behaviour. So it's about how we identify and assess the risk of those children and young people, and whether we should be working with them or not, who else should be working with them. So it's how that work is coordinated, who is working with the right people at the right time and in the right way, and what are we doing? And I think that's one of the major challenges really for the future. And I say that in a positive way, not a negative way as well. I've mentioned our feedback systems. We've got a small education team sitting within the YOS now, responsible for monitoring all children that are known to the youth offending team, and specifically those that are that need additional learning needs addressing. And we are linking in with our partners across education in Merthyr Tydfil and RCT in terms of how we link in effectively to contribute to individual development plans for those children and young people. Health, I think that health is an ever-present on these reports, as it is on the agenda for the Offender Management Board. It's one of those things that we fluctuate every now and again. Sometimes we've got the right provision, other times we haven't. So we're constantly pushing an open door here. But I'm hopeful in the next couple of weeks we will have the right provision that we need. And I'm currently in negotiation with CAMS to make sure that we've got what we need within the YOS so that we can deliver the service as best we can. In terms of where we want to be there, I'm not sure that I've fully answered the where we want to be bit, other than to reiterate the importance really of being able to work in buildings and offices effectively with vulnerable families when we need to. And I think that's something that probably impacts upon most agencies. But there's a lot of our work, our statutory work with police in terms of out-of-court disposals, with community volunteers, with our referral order work, where community volunteers come in and work with victims of crime, as well as children and young people that enter into our service. And as far as I'm concerned, we can't do that on a virtual basis all the time. We're starting to work in a much more hybrid way at the moment, but it's something that's a challenge for the future. But we need to make sure we've got the right premises to do that, and I'm constantly banging on the drum for that. It's less of an issue with us in the law courts because we're central at the moment and we've got our base, and families and children automatically come down there. It's more of an issue, I suppose, in RCT. And I've mentioned, of course, the issues around potential funding in 6.2. The way in which YOS is funded is highly dependent, I suppose, as other agencies are, on grant funding. So forever keeping an eye on further pressures maybe down the line as a consequence of what's happened during the last year or so. So in terms of what we need to do next, I've mentioned the restructure. I think that's the main priorities, and the importance of embedding that into our new framework. Making sure, as I've said, we have the right health provision, and also to ensure that we maintain the momentum of that national standards work that I mentioned to you at the start. In other words, making sure that all partners are on board as well, because without partners, it won't happen. And finally, I just mentioned the issue of the needs of the cohort. It's one of those things I think that inspectorates always say, you don't know the needs of your cohort or whatever you're working with. I think that we're in a better place now in terms of evidencing what the needs of our cohort are. And I think that with the restructure of the service, we'll certainly be in a better place in the longer term in terms of making sure that we respond to that cohort as best we can. And that's it from me on that one, Chair.
Thank you, then. Great. Any comments from members? Then I'm gonna throw a question out to you, right? Because I read this report, and it's the same type of report we have every year, right?
Okay.
I haven't given this to members, right? But I'd like to have a workshop on this. How can Scrutiny help you? Because it's not just yachts working on their own. We've got social services, adult children, we've got other staff, because when we used to have this, we used to have kids do litter picking, tidy up, clean woods, do this, you know, and the public was into it because they could see that you've done the crime, you pay the crime. So, you know, people work together. And this is what's missing over the last couple of years. So I'd like to have I don't remember feel about workshop. How can we work them? How can we change the system? Because we've got a couple of workshop meetings with Lisa and other management, and we changed the reports and we changed a lot of things. I'm just looking for your views on this, because at the end of the day, it's funding, it's staffing. So how can we work together to improve it a lot more and get the public out there? Because when you mention the public about youth workers and all that, they say, oh, they're not doing nothing. And years ago, we used to do the litter pick. We used to do this, and people say difference. So what's the views on that? I know I'll ask the members first, right? So I won't get shot in the foot. How do members feel? So a bit of a workshop and then find out what we can do and how we can help them?
Yeah, that would be a good thing.
Yeah, I've got no problem, Bill. No problem at all.
Any other? No, all sleeping.
We haven't got any more members here, Bill.
All right. I've got Catherine, got to be, right? Then, what do you think?
For test.
Yes, Chair, and yes, listening to members there, I'm certainly happy to set up a workshop and discuss with members and councillors exactly what they would like to see happen within the service. I think what I would say is that in terms of reparation to the community. It's something that we haven't stopped doing even throughout COVID. I know that in Merthyr we're back in now using an allotment where some of our young people are taking up reparation hours to work in the allotment up there. I think I agree with you. I think maybe we can get a bit better at evidencing what we do and shouting a little bit about that. And I think that it might help to ease public perception maybe of young people that come to the Youth Offending Service. But all I would say is there's a lot of good work going on in numerous projects around Merthyr. But that said, certainly happy to facilitate a workshop with members of our team, and I think for us to explain to members what we're actually doing on the ground as well, Chair, and to share any of those ideas with you and how we could go forward. So yes, I'm certainly willing to look at that.
Well, I'm not knocking it down and supportive. I know how can we do it. Deck, you hand up.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Chair. Lyndon, it's just a quick one, really. You said the figures on youth offending are rising. Just quickly, have lockdowns and restrictions, do you think directly have these directly resulted in youth offending levels to increase?
Thank you, Councillor Salmon. No, I think that in terms of our statutory caseloads, those young people that come through the police stations and the law courts, they've sort of remained stable. I think what's more difficult to evidence is actually how many young people are coming through via the antisocial behaviour route. And I know that I have a meeting this week to identify, because we don't always have the right young people being referred into Youth Offending Service. And during the time of COVID, antisocial behaviour referrals were being treated, and antisocial behaviour incidents on the street were being treated as breaches of COVID. So they weren't automatically being referred into Youth Offending Service. So I think certainly during the time last year, most of 2020, there was certainly a decrease in the numbers of young people coming through, mainly because they weren't going out, or, you know, in some cases they weren't going out. But in the last 4 to 5 months, we've certainly seen a significant increase in young people coming back into the prevention arena. And we've got a waiting list at the moment for young people that we need to be working with and getting on board with, which is why I mentioned within the report, really, the importance of identifying what agencies need to be working with these young people and where the Youth Offending Service comes into play, where it should be Team Around the Family, where it should be ASB, and etc. So it's something that we work on, but certainly it's been pretty stable. The prevention was down, but it's now increased again.
Lyndon, just a follow-up, thank you. You mentioned that sometimes the wrong people are being referred to youth offending. Am I reading this wrong? But are sometimes we over-eager maybe to put people towards you when they don't really need that?
Yeah, I don't think that people have been eager to. I think sometimes, you know, families, schools, sometimes there's a cry for help, you know, and if they've heard of Youth Offending Service, automatically they'll come through to us, and that's no bad thing. I think the main thing is we get better at signposting children and young people and families to where they need to be. So a child may be referred to us via a route or whatever, but it may not be us that are the right agency that needs to be on board at that time. And I think that's going to be the key really going forward. It's how that work is coordinated operationally on the front line. But, you know, I think what we tend to do at the moment, and I'm not being critical, what we tend to do at the moment is take on all comers, you know, and then we have referral difficulties, and then we have waiting lists. because somebody, you know, has stolen something or whatever. But it's the behaviour underneath what they've stolen, really. It's not really the offending behaviour. It's about something else that's going on in their lives that they need to have dealt with, and that may be better suited to other agencies and not just youth offending. I think the main thing is that we work together to resolve this.
And I think you've hit the nail on the head there. To be honest, it's you can signpost these the use to different agencies or different departments, and I think that's something right throughout social services. To be honest, is that early help, and I think that's good for everyone. That's good for the youth. That's good for the families and society in general.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lyndon.
Thank you. I would
The
agree.
practice workshop and sort one or two things out. You know, that's,
Yes. Yes. Happy to go with that, Councillor Smith.
right. Everybody happy with this? Lyndon, thank you very much. We'll be better next time I see you. We'll be better.
Thank you very much, Chair.
And don't take your time over the weekend now, right?
I will. I
It's
will
your
take
first
your
time out.
advice.
Don't spend a call too fast because you may collapse. All the best.
All the best. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Lyndon.
Right then, we got number 6 then is the forward work program that's in front of us. Everybody happy with that? So we know the next one. So what we do with Lyndon when we have a date, we like to have a special one, like we did a one in the morning, something like that, and we work around the dates and we work with you. I got nothing for scrutiny referral feedback. I got nothing on that. Everybody happy? Valuation of the meeting, folks. Everybody happy?
Yes.
As always, Bill. As always.
Great. See now, and then see now my team talks to me. And I got no other business, so I'd like to say everybody, thank you very much. Appreciate it all turning up. And I'll see you tomorrow night.
Thank you, Chair. All the best.
Okay,